Are you
We have
My name is Max Bear, and I'm Cheyenne Arapaho, or Enrolled Cheyenne Arapaho, and then I'm Kiowa. So I'm three different tribes. I was asked to come down here as a veteran to be a part of this because some of the things that we do for tribal, we have to stay in protocols. You always have to have a veteran in place, to do certain things. My name is Max Bear, and I'm Cheyenne Arapaho, or Enrolled Cheyenne Arapaho, and then I'm Kiowa. So I'm three different tribes. I was asked to come down here as a veteran to be a part of this because some of the things that we do for tribal, we have to stay in protocols. You always have to have a veteran in place, to do certain things, to touch flags or to do, traditions. So that's why I came on board initially, and then, well, I'm also the tribal historic preservation officer, so it's part of my job too. So.
My name is Quentin Milan Romanos. Uh, I'm a Cheyenne citizen of the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes. My father, Milan Romanos, he's a World War II combat veteran. Great grandfather, Henry Romanos, he was a scout. I think today in modern times, Native Americans, still per capita volunteer at a higher rate than other ethnic groups. And so, I think that history of military service among Native Americans is strong and still is surviving today.
My name is Lori. Gulelo. My Kiowa name is Kiaitoma, and I'm from the Kiowa tribe. I did ROTC in boarding school, and then I just wanted to join the military because my dad was a Marine. I can kind of feel how they felt, because like when you go through basic training, you know, you're stripped of everything. No clothes, no nothing, we're given uniforms. Actually, the females too had the option to, we could cut our hair, shave our hair off, or we could leave it long. I kept mine long, and I was able to learn how to braid my own hair or put it in a bun. So just knowing that, you know, when we were here at the cemetery, just knowing that that's what they went through, it just, God brought all kinds of emotions up, you know, and just feeling it and knowing that's how they felt, you know, because that's kind of what I went through in basic training.
Warren Wheaton, a member of the Kiowa tribe. I'm also of Cherokee and Seminole Nations of Oklahoma. I think my inspiration comes from my grandfather. He was in World War II. He was a paratrooper with the 511th Parachute Infantry. He fought in the Philippines and was wounded. So I've always thought, what I want to be like him. I think it's a legacy of service in the Army. As Native people, and I think that's what our warriors thought. You know, like if I serve them,
And, I just wanted to introduce myself, and I'll go into more of the story about that.
Thank you so much all for being here. For those of us that joined us yesterday, I'm Steve Roberts, and I am the Director of Interpretation and Education at Castillo de San Marcos National Monument in St. Augustine, Florida. And as Max said, the name that our national park goes by goes back to its original construction name as a Spanish fort, and that's Castillo de San Marcos. When it became an American fort, it was named Fort Marion, and that is how these meetings began, so that the National Park Service could listen and learn about the importance of those. But traditionally, the National Park Service, and I think the federal government as a whole, has really focused on military records to tell the story. And as we work closely with Noreen and Max and others from the tribe, our goal is to help the nearly 800,000 people that visit Fort Marion or Castillo de San Marcos every year to understand the truth and the whole story of the imprisonments at Fort Marion and the long-lasting legacy of those imprisonments. And so, again, we started this partnership about 7.5 years ago that led to our first inaugural symposium in 2022 in St. Augustine, followed by uh, another symposium in 2023 that involved our friends from the Kiowa tribe, the Comanche Nation, and the Caddo Nation, as well as the host tribe, the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. And again, part of this is really about learning. And as part of that, we need a mechanism as the National Park Service is the caretakers of the fort. We want to make sure that we are able to appropriately and accurately tell the story of the tribal prisoners, the captives that went to Fort Marion. And so, working with Max, we developed, Max wrote this brochure that I handed out just a little while ago, and this is going to be available at Fort Marion for visitors for years and years to come. And it helps our visitors to understand why these captives were in Florida. The concept that we talked and learned about yesterday at Washita about total warfare and massacre versus battle. You may have noticed in the back the Chief Heap of Birds exhibit. That is a traveling exhibit that is with the tribe. We have that same exhibit written by Noreen at Fort Marion. Again, previously to this project, Captain Pratt was the main person of the story. Through our partnership, we're expanding on that to understand more about the prisoners taken from their homes, taken from here at Darlington. And through brochures like this and continuing events, annual events like the symposium, our goal is to make sure these stories are never forgotten. Lieutenant Governor mentioned a few minutes ago how important it is that we remember this history, that we remember these captives, the tribal members taken. And I have dedicated this symposium, as well as our everyday work at Fort Marion, at Castillo de San Marcos, to make sure we're telling this complete, accurate, appropriate history of our fort, of the United States. And being here in Oklahoma has been such an honor to see these places. Gordon Yellowman talked to us quite a bit yesterday, sharing his wealth of knowledge. And it's this knowledge sharing where we, the National Park Service, can learn to do better and have a Native American voice through brochures like this, through our website where the tribe has put together oral histories. Sharing that tribal voice of this history is so important. And we thank all of you for being part of that. And I think with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful experience. And I would won't say an enjoyable experience. These the sessions yesterday and the sessions today really tackle some very difficult topics. But it's part of the learning process, and we're thankful to have all of you here with us today to experience this together. With that, I'll turn it back over to Max.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. And, going to elaborate on what he just said about, the knowledge. I didn't know much about when I started this project. I started familiarizing myself with Sandhill. The Battle of Sandhill is what I'm going to talk about. And like I said, to me, it's related to all our Chirapo people here. And I don't think we know enough about it. I don't think we know enough that we're directly involved. A lot of us have relatives that were there. And going back to where this came from, the development of this brochure is part of me getting up here and telling stories like this Battle of Sandhill, or talking about Sand Creek Massacre, or talking about Washington Massacre, and going different places. That's part of my job as a TIPO to do. So I got to have that knowledge beforehand before I even go out there and talk about it. But when I started going into researching these things, there's a lot, especially around Sandhill. I found there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of different stories, and the stories that I tried to stick to are the ones that are related mostly to Cheyenne people. Those oral stories. Like I said, Melvin. I heard the story from him, and he said it was the first time that they have ever used a Gatling gun west of the Mississippi, and they used it right here, right at that little sandhill that's what I was talking about. So that's kind of the thing that I want to bring home and put that into our China Rap people's knowledge. That, hey, this is important. And we were attacked right here, the very place we had to sit here and make all our decisions about our government, but we were attacked here. So going into that, I had to research the story, and I reached out to Fort Reno to their historian. They never gave me a call back, but I found out that their story was that there was nobody killed during the battle or whatever. It's more like a mimic, almost a massacre, but they said there was nobody killed during the battle. They had suffered one injury that led into death, and that their soldiers buried there. But when I go back into the books that were written about us, you'll find details saying, "Hey, this and this happened," and then you go back to the oral stories, and hey, this is what really happened. This is how that battle was, and this is the research that I had done since I started, centering myself around the Sand Hill. And the reason why I did the Sand Hill because it leads into the Fort Marion, and then the Fort Marion area leads into the Gordon area, and then that trails off to where we're at now. But prior to all that, you can't tell a story like this and say there were prisoners at Fort Marion without telling the story behind that. Because if you say that prisoners at Fort Marion, they're going to be viewed as somebody that did something bad and heinous, something that deserves to go to prison. We know the law. We know if we break the law, we'll get in trouble. Sometimes we'll go to prison. These men defended themselves. They defended themselves for their people and their children because we already had 3 known massacres at that time. The City Creek Massacre, Washington Massacre, and the White Bluffs Massacre, which you probably won't even know too much about. But that's when they wiped out the dog soldiers, our Cheyenne dog soldiers in Colorado. So you see, these things are all kind of tied together. But we want to highlight, our Cheyenne Arapaho people to make sure we understand our stories. That way, we can be proud of who we are, of why we sit here and say, "Hey, this is the really." Because in 2020, we found 5 unknown graves here on our reservation lands. 5 unknown graves just kind of came out of nowhere. We have a guy that comes out here and takes control of bobcats and coyotes during the early winter months. That way, the buffaloes don't get bothered too much. He was walking here in one of our pastures and happened to notice something sticking out on the ground. So he walked over to look at it. It was a small calorie shell. It was brought out of the ground by gophers. So we had to pay attention to this area because about maybe 200 yards away, they were planning on building an oil rig right there in that same area. It was right below the hill. If I could sit here and point to y'all in the direction, oh yeah, that's where it is. And point with my lips like that. I'll teach y'all that later. But all you non lippers, We'll get to that. Anyhow, we found those graves, and so we, as a depot, I was one of the ones that was first called. So we researched them, try to find out who they are. We didn't pick them up, but we found other things, like other articles or antiques. There were some little porcelain beads, other cowrie shells. We didn't find a finger bone. But as a job for the depot, we have to take care of them. We have to protect them. That's exactly what we did. But upon the research and on those, I found out there were 5 people that were actually killed during that battle of Sand Hill. 5 of our people, because they shot that Gatling gun straight into the camp. But they didn't say that. Over here at Fort Reno, their historian didn't say that. I had to go and find that out. I don't know who they were, names are, but this is possibly where they're buried, right here upon the hill. If you think about it, look at it, our camps have been right here by the river. If you look that way, it goes up a nice little hill. There would have been places in the sand hills where we would have buried somebody, because that's what we traditionally do. Cheyenne people bury our people in the sand hills. Older times, and up north, they have them in trees and racks. But down here, we put them in the sand hills. So we don't know about who those people are. We just know they're old. And the graves were probably predated past 1875, because that's when the cemetery that we use now began. The first one was buried in there, Britton Darlington, who named it this. So not getting to too much history, I want to kind of go over this. That's why this development, this brochure, because they had something down there that was a little confusing to read, and it said that they're trying to tie the Sand Creek Massacre in with the national park, and I know that's probably the best thing you can do. It sometimes we don't have too much material, but I said this is not good enough, because you have to tell the stories about these men that were down here, and if you know what these men done, what they did, it'll change your perspective on what to call them. I grew up knowing that there was prisoners at Fort Marion, but to me, as my research, I, I look into it. They're not prisoners. They were captives. They were taken here. They were supposed to be friendly. So the agents, they were here, but they said, "All right, well, we got to have 33 people to go to Fort Marion. We're going to start collecting the warriors in." And people think of warriors, something like that, these little strong soldiers. But look at that picture back there. That was one of the chiefs, war chief that was there. He wasn't the one of the 44 chiefs. And he was a war chief, and he would have been my age. Those guys that went to Fort Marion were called ringleaders. They were labeled, because they started the Red River War with the other tribe, so they all got in trouble. But they weren't. They were men trying to take up for their people, because they weren't getting the news that we were promised. We didn't deal with no government relations. We were always dealing with the soldiers. We wanted something, we had to go to the soldiers. The Fort Reno was put here to control us, it wasn't to help us. This agent kind of helped. It started, going down the wrong path and everything like that. So I can't call these men prisoners. I have to call them hostages or captives. So that's what I want to cover in the Battle of Sand Hill, that's right here. As y'all got this brochure and pamphlet, and y'all can follow along, take it home with you. I put a lot of thought into this, because, like Steve said, you want to talk to everybody that comes from all over the world. And they don't know nothing about anything. And if they have just a small little bit of knowledge, they can pick up what they basic generic decibel. In 1875 in the Cheyenne Rapids in Florida, and that would be the basis of what we're talking about and why they're down there. And it goes into even and why is Fort Marion clock steel? They say go now. And why were the Cheyenne Rapids and why were the Cheyenne Rapids prisoners at Fort? And we go into talk about that, and that's we go into talk about that, and that's I would like to just read that, and that's kind of come of the Battle of Sand Hill in my reading glasses or magnifying glass. I can't change the were brought to surrender the Cheyenne Agency at Darlington near present-day Cheyenne Rapo Tribal Reservation in Oklahoma, and that's where we are right now. Commanding officer at the time, Lieutenant Colonel H. Thomas A. Neal. All the selected were put into the guardhouse until they were be brought by a train from Oklahoma to Fort Marion, Oklahoma, Florida, where they were to be incarcerated. But on April 6, 1875, the Cheyenne Rapo players and allegations in there upon a journey on to a blacksmith who would shackle on their legs. Now that head was away from the agency. Know where that is? But it was somewhere a little further away. They described Cattle Springs as being the point where it was near that. If you go straight up this road that we came in, the intersection, back to Concho, all that, and you'll to Cattle Springs up there. First spring, but Fort and State, so you get all the water from followed and shot at him and supposedly killed him. This was another story that I heard from the Fort Reno side that they did kill black horse. Now, were a few black horses in different tribes. There's one in Comanche, about Kiowa, but there's other tribes. The northern tribes also had some black horses also. It was kind of common. But this one here actually did survive that shoot. He got shot, but he actually survived. And he had, lived up north and said some of his descendants are on the Cheyenne tribe now. So there's again a story that we have to tell so accurately. We got all the information to do that. So that's what's put into this. He fled towards the nearby village, north of the Canadian River, where the U.S. soldiers followed and shot at him and supposedly killed him. The ordeal and this tell the camp what was happening. The previous attacks resulting in massacres I mentioned before, happened in years prior. So that's always on their mind. And if you think about our traditions, our customs, old folks used to sleep with their moccasins and shoes by the end of their bed. You ever ask them why, and they'll say, "You never know leave, and all of a sudden, at least we can get to our shoes. So that's kind of what was always massacre, you know. Previous attacks resulting in massacres happened in years. The village assumed something similar and decided to flee. Many guards raced toward the nearby village, not entered due to the tribe's dog soldiers who stayed behind to buy the rest of the camp time to flee. The U.S. 6th Cavalry rode up and fired into the village. Captain A. Rafferty and his men started to move towards the retreating warriors on a sand. However, unbeknownst to him, warriors had stashed firearms, previously stashed, opened up fire on causing Rafferty and his men to. More U.S. soldiers arrived from the 10th Cavalry with Gatling gun, breaking up the dog soldiers' position. This was the first time in recorded history that the Gatling gun was used west of the Mississippi River. The Cheyenne Rapo Agency, many from the village did. And that tells you the story of research that's available. But in addition to that, like I said, the sandhill right over here, even a mile away from here. That night this happened. This just comes from oral stories. Also, just had their inside that sandhill before all they came into the agency prior to them was going to happen. They knew how to defend themselves. Came here, you have to give your weapons up. Sometimes your horses. Stash them that hill. That was their government into that to defend themselves nighttime. They just came back, you know. But that was a good chance for our dog soldiers, our people to escape, and they escaped far as north that they could. So that was based, and that's about all I can tell you about Sandhill right now. Research going, and I'll always have a part 2, something like that. But this is kind of the thing that I wanted to do as far as this, to highlight all over, all telling our stories in these national parks. Thank you for the opportunity for Steve letting me do that and everything like that, and posing. I really appreciate something. So I'm sorry for you and take up too much of your time seeing you back there. Thank you all. Have a good day.
At the time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some leadership. As the tribes, we've been hosting for a few years. Kiowas, the Comanches, come because they were all incarcerated at the same time. Warren, do you want to come on up first and I'll let Warren speak, and and then you can speak after him. Warren.
Oyomda, Honde Batsan. I'm glad we could all come together. My name is Warren. My name is The Moon is Coming. I greet you all today. It's wonderful to be with many familiar faces, and I see Mr. Roman knows I went with his daughter Nona back in 1999. It's good to see you again. And my classmate back here, Gordon Yellowman, a lot of good Cheyenne and Arapaho relatives up here, and also I want to acknowledge our Caddo, our Comanche relatives too. It was for me. I got to attend last year at Fort Marion, and it was really I didn't know how to feel about it. And it began a journey for me personally. Vision. You went down there, and I got to learn a little bit about that trip. But it's kind of one of those things you really don't know how to feel because through oral tradition, through our stories, our elders have told us. Because as we talked about, I like what Max said, prisoners, because it was a way of life our people lived in. They were promised things, and it didn't happen. So survive homeland, their villages. My tribe, Comanches, Cheyenne Rapids, we were part of that. Kiowas, we attacked a wagon train in Jacksboro, Texas, and for food, for subsistence. We needed those things to survive. Fought together, all of us. We made our way to the Paladuro Canyon, and for Kiowas and Comanches, that was our last stand. You know, too. So from Fort Wayne to Paladuro Canyon, it's really been something to learn warrior to defend our people. And I'm glad the National Park Service, and I want to thank them, Shine Rapids, for having this symposium here today. On behalf of the Kiowa tribe, we say, "Damn, for doing this," and it's important work. And I'll tell you why that we're collaborating is that this is our stories, and nobody can talk with our people except our own people. And it's important work because what happens usually with tribes, people come to us with a something already made. What do y'all think about this? Are y'all good with this? Most tribal leadership will say, "Yeah, we're good with it." No, you really need to think about collaborating. So I wanna say good job, Max, on collaborating and making this and kinda breaking it all down because it's important that we say we're collaborating to make these types of educational materials. Because I think it was a point that I made last year when we went down there. They I think a lot of the National Park Service were saying, "Well, can we do to educate people on Caddos and Cheyenne Arapaho and Kiowas?" I said, "Well, that's really our job because we are the ones that hold our history. We know our history, and we still are able to teach that. And that's part of our identity as independent people. We wanna tell that story. Rita and Martina, Mentor, Comanche, they're all doing really good work. We need to continue to focus on collaboration for many, many years to come. To our National Park Service friends, you know, we support you. We wanna work together and continue this collaboration in the future. So I just wanna say welcome, but it's November, Native American Heritage Month. We're all being pulled in different directions from tribal leadership to opening, I have to go open, a school luncheon or something like that, but, we're trying to fill in, and here are my chairmen up and all of our other, so, the Kiowa tribe, I just want to say thank you. You all have a wonderful event here in a couple of days, and wish you traveling mercies. Thank you.
Mother Wicca, you know, it's a privilege to spend time with you in these kind of moments, these kind of places, with this history, with the understanding of our people. You know, I stand here thinking of many, many people here in this place, as was spoken by Mark. But you know, we all had those circumstances with our nations. The Comanche people, you know, some of them were taken as well, Fort Marion. As they had that experience last year, some of the Comanches and other Kiowa, Caddo tribes were there. And as I spoke to some of them that visited at that time, I didn't make it, but they really had an emotional experience. When you go to those places and you see that people were captives, they didn't willingly go. They were taken, and taken by force. You know, no good way to treat a person. You know, if you have animals, sometimes we give greater respect to our animals than we do to our people, and that's our history. You know, Comanche nations with the Kiowas and Cheyenne have had battles here and there, as was spoken here from my Kiowa brother. The Red River Wars occurred, and as he spoke about Paladura Canyon, it's a beautiful place to go and see and visit if you have, and it's good to see the history. And you can go and in the summer. I know we have some of our Comanche people in that ceremony that they carry on, or that presentation, and they speak about these things. I think of my son, I think of my relatives, and those who are younger. We need to share all this with them. They need to be in these places. You know, we need to go to their schools and get an opportunity to really tell an education of Indian nations. The Comanche people are very proud to this day who we are. Humana. Some people say lords of the plains. I know in the past, when I was looking at the census of 1899 recently, going through all the Comanche families. The Comanche nation, original Latis, our original individuals brought onto the reservation, amazingly, were only in the South. What happened to them? You can see we have many bands, and the bands roved in many places. Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, Mexico, New Mexico, and we still do. You know, we have relationships in the Comanche Nation, not only with our brothers and sisters here in this place, in this state, in this area, we have with the Pueblos of New Mexico. And shortly, we're going to have a gathering with them. You know, the Pueblos, all the way from Zuni to Taos, Indigo. do Comanche off the plains and bring of food, hides, and things, Taos Pueblos and to the other Pueblos, principally into Taos, and meeting with our Ute brothers who are now remaining, some of them in Colorado. You know, these circumstances now that we're seeing with our relationship with Pueblos, I think it's going to be a historic event when we meet and talk about some of the things that happened in the past. I might say sitting in an audience is my fellow Comanche person, Hazel Tassaquah. Would you stand up, Hazel? She's on our business committee. And I'm sure she too can speak a lot about our Numina people. You know, the history that we speak about at Fort Marion is but one example. I really like what, Mark, you have done. Brochure. It's a very educational tool now that speaks from you, your people. You know, some books have been recently published by different persons about the Comanche people. One of them, I don't even cite the title, but we have a resolution that we passed to accept this book. It's not truthful. It expands, it glamorizes, it horrifies the Comanche people. Today, you know, we need to recognize that this is intellectual property. We must keep our language. We must keep our stories. And if they're to be told, we tell them, we write, we explain, we visit, present it. That's what we all need to do. And this is what's done in a way, a memorial circumstances. Let's continue this. You know, we in Oklahoma, 39 nations. We need to really gather in some ways and speak to each other about history, but build relationships better than we have today. Just as I hope we do the Comanche Nation with the Pueblos upcoming in our activity to visit with them. A few years ago, maybe 20 years, I think maybe 30 years, Comanches, southern Ignacio, Colorado. We had our teepees up. We went into our traditional way of greeting and meeting. And we signed an understanding of our relationship, our brothers and youths. Aztecian. They use the word Ute, but all of these are Numic people. We all speak our languages: Shoshone, Comanche, Ute, Paiute, Hopi, believe it or not, Yaqui, and I can go on and on. There's many other tribes. And as we know, you know, I think not only should we talk about these circumstances of dilemmas, sorrow, sadness, meanness, really. We should also talk about who we are. And I'm so happy in many ways. I say to you, as we go into these events and talk about Marion, Florida, let's remember those people not only carried on and did some beautiful artwork, which we remember, but they kept their spirit. I know when I read the history, they took some of them to the southern states from Fort Marion as they moved them. What a horror that was. They had to go to a climate that was humid, hot, dirty, and many lost their lives. How we're treated, you know, it's a matter of history. It's a matter of fact, and we need to bring it out. And I like to think as we go about these things, we have some of the wonderful war cries. We have some of our great ceremonies. And we come in with shouts and the beautiful yake, our call of our women, and we celebrate. And I hope as we grow as Indian nations, we speak in our language. We got to keep our language. If you know your history and you know your language, when you speak your language, and I like to speak the language, and here as a guest, I speak in English to all of us. I like to say when we get among our people, speak your language. In your language, what you find is protocol. You find etiquette. You find behavior. All those are language. Example, Comanche, Sketanana. You know, we are not too. You never give. You don't let any circumstance put you down. And I know our forefathers, our bands, Penatuka, Yampatuka, Oconee, Quahada, our bands, and many others, they kept their relationships with each other and with other tribes, an understanding of the language. Our language teaches us discipline. Our language teaches us behavior. Our languages teach us to be that good person. But at the same time, stand up. Never give up. Keta, not a kupawai. No, we will not give up. We will stand. That's what you're doing, all of us here today. We're standing with the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Caddo, Comanche, and Kiowa. It's not the only. Our other brothers and sisters. Thank you all for all being here. Put it in your heart to do better now. And just as I remark our others, like we thank the National Park Service. You know, at one time, the National Park Service was ornery. And I remember going with my friends and some Indian people to that great place in Montana where tribes were involved with some great gallant cavalryman. And I heard unfortunate stories from the Park Service. They were being too rude, I felt, to us as we want to visit and ask questions and be around. They really want us there. And now I know I have a good friend that's working in the National Park Service and Indian. So good to see that they have been superintendents now of national monuments and National Park Service, like all of American society, has come a long road to recognize things like Fort Marion and indeed give it the proper respect and allow the American Indian to have some latitude in their visit. And then they're inquiring of documents and data and history. So I compliment them today. I thank you for the road that they've walked to learn, to appreciate, to truly understand the story that must be told by me, not you.
$11. Give this to. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. There's water in the back of the chapel. We brought some water in for those of you that need, and take care of yourself and breathe a little bit, and then come back in about 10 minutes, and then we'll continue, and we'll be finished.